Time for position previews. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, February 5th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we have our 2026 catcher preview, what you can expect, an overview of the position, strategy, deep dives on specific players. We've got sleepers, breakouts, busts, our favorites to draft, ADP analysis, all that fun stuff, everything in between. Let's start at the very top, a macro look at catcher. Historic season from Cal Raleigh last year, the best ever by a catcher. We had 4 catchers provide $20+ in 12-team roto category leagues. That was the same number as 2024. We had 4 catchers provide 400+ fantasy points on CBS last season, with Raleigh all the way up at 622, which is pretty insane. We only had 3 of those, by the way, with 400+ in 2024. Scott, we have talked about this a lot this offseason. Mm-hmm. When you consider this position has an MVP candidate, all the young talent that is emerging at the same time, potential cheat codes like Ben Rice and Ivan Herrera, this feels, and I know we've said this before, like the best catcher has been in a long time, maybe ever.
Yeah, I think clearly it's the best it's ever been. And that makes it, on the one hand, easy to approach, and on the other hand, can be kind of difficult. For example, I was just doing a head-to-head points mock earlier tonight. 1 catcher league, 12 teams. It's those 1 catcher leagues, man. In theory, you could just wait till the end of the draft and take the catcher. But there are different tiers within that stacked position. And so, somebody like Hunter Goodman, who in points leagues I rank 3rd at the position. He just hit 31 homers and drove in 91 runs as a catcher last year. He's there beyond pick 100. It's like, well, there are a lot of great options that'll be there throughout the draft, but this is such a good value. I guess I just have to take him. And I didn't feel good about it, but that's what makes it difficult. Is do you just reject drafting a catcher in a 1 catcher league? I'm talking about on principle, because you're going to be happy with whoever you get whenever you get them, or do you go ahead and, when the discount is obvious, just accept it, even though it means sacrificing in some other area? So that's what I'm wrestling with. Another example of how deep it is I just did one of 2 surveys I do in the preseason, the dynasty focused one. Like, which catcher do you want most in a dynasty league? I did it for all 8 positions: catcher, first base, second base, etc. Catcher, of all the 8 positions, catcher had by far the most players who received multiple responses. And that's even with there being a clear number 1 in Cal Raleigh. I mean, the best catcher coming off the best catcher season ever, like you said, Frank. There was just so many candidates who could vie for that number 2 spot in a dynasty league, which of course, for redraft purposes, it applies too, because it's all a bunch of young guys who are just breaking through and showing exciting potential. So very exciting right now, and you have to approach it very differently than you have in the past.
And I want to highlight one other thing here, which is, Frank, you said 4 players had at least $20 worth of value in the FanGraphs Player Rater, which is the same number as 2024, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound that impressive. Well, if you just lower that number to $15, that number jumps to 8 in 2025 and only 5 in 2024. If you lower it to $10, you had 13 catchers in 2025 who were worth at least $10. Only 8 in 2024. Only 5 in 2023. Only 3 in 2022. There were basically as many combined in the previous 3 seasons as there were last year, $10 catchers. So wow. I think there are many ways you can make this point. A year ago, Yainer Diaz was a top 60 pick, and I know he had a pretty bad season, although when you actually look at the numbers, it's mostly just BABIP.
And it was mostly just April.
Yeah, he mostly just lost 30 singles. Look, that's a lot, but he actually had 2 fewer extra base hits last season than he had in 2024. The power was there, a lot of the plate discipline, a lot of the underlying skills. I bring up Yainer Diaz because I think this is the first time anyone said Yainer Diaz's name this offseason on this podcast, because there's just so much more to be excited about at the position this year that Yainer Diaz is kind of a forgotten man, even though he's 27 years old and was every bit as exciting as these other guys this time a year ago. So it's a great time for the position. Now, just to be a wet blanket for a second,
No.
catcher is the position that has the most injuries outside of pitcher.
Yep.
Catcher is the position where guys tend to both debut later, peak later, and peak shorter than every other position. And so I think I said this the other day, pitching is attrition, catching is attrition. And so we're so excited about this position right now. If we get to August and we're like, boy, catcher kind of stinks right now, I'm not expecting that.
No.
I wouldn't be shocked if that happened.
No. There's so much redundancy here. And I think,
agree.
I think it could turn out that way in a 2-catcher league that, oh man, I'm having trouble filling my second catcher spot, because that's always been true for second catcher spots.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in a 1-catcher league, which is what the vast majority of the audience plays in, there are 17, 18 quality starters. You could argue there's more than that even. I'm drawing the line at 18. And so, you think a 12-team league, that gives you half a dozen buffer there if your first choice doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
And by the way, every number that we mention here, just in your head, add 1 at least, because Ivan Herrera is going to gain catcher eligibility presumably early on in the season.
We hope.
Yeah. Others might too.
Yeah.
Moises Ballesteros might.
Yeah.
It is a possibility there. And Scott, I think your qualm about 1-catcher leagues is a good one, a fair one, something that I have thought about as well. And I've noticed this in years past, where in head-to-head leagues, shallower format, you only start 1 catcher. You really do want as many difference makers at every position as you can get. But I've noticed in the past, whenever I draft a catcher inside the top 100, let's say, and then I see which catchers go in the second to last round of the draft, I always end up kicking myself because they always seem like viable options. So, Chris, I'll throw this one your way. How do you balance that in a head-to-head league, shallower format, only 1 catcher, wanting to get a difference maker on your roster, playing the value game, but also realizing, man, at the end game, there's probably still going to be some really, really solid catchers here?
I think it's maybe less true than you think in a head-to-head points league, specifically because of the scoring format. Because while you can look at Alejandro Kirk in a roto league and say, I'm thrilled if Alejandro Kirk is my number 2 catcher, especially. Oh, that's great.
I mean, the guy never strikes out. He's got a pretty good points league profile.
He had 332 points last year.
2.56 points per game, which was comparable to Salvador Perez.
Right, but Salvador Perez is not a great points league player. He was right around 400. He plays more. But my point is that there are a lot of guys worth getting excited about. But the limitations in a points league, I think, are more obvious with the catchers, because your guys like Cal Raleigh, your guys like William Contreras, Hunter Goodman, I think Agustin Ramirez and Ben Rice as well, Salvador Perez, they're going to play a ton. And then everyone else is going to play maybe 80% as many games as those guys. And so I think it's easier to talk yourself into Yainer Diaz or Will Smith or Alejandro Kirk as your starter in a roto league. I think it's harder to do that in a points league.
Okay, the playing time thing is interesting, but who did you rattle off there as everyday players? Because I think there are far more catchers who
Raleigh, Contreras, Goodman, Langeliers. He catches a lot, but he doesn't DH very much.
He's not going to get DH stuff.
Ben Rice, Salvador Perez, Agustin Ramirez, Drake Baldwin definitely early in the season, but
Ivan Herrera, who isn't a catcher yet, but he's an everyday player.
Maybe Yainer Diaz, but he's a bad points league player.
Good chance both the Orioles guys, Rutschman and Basayo.
Maybe.
Like, not a guarantee, but a good chance.
Sure.
Yeah. I do think that I am...
Carter Jensen likely to play every day.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll play against lefties, at least to start, just because I was looking into some splits in the minor leagues. Numbers against lefties weren't great, but I do think
playing every day.
In a one-catcher league, I am more likely to go after Ivan Herrera and just know that in the last round, I can get whoever the catcher 13, 14, 15 is, Gabriel Moreno, Alejandro Kirk, Kyle Teel, Basayo, any of those guys, and just plug that catcher in until hopefully Ivan Herrera gets catcher eligibility. So I am much more likely to do it in a one-catcher league than in a two-catcher league.
Yeah, and if you don't get an impactful utility, I'm totally fine using Ivan Herrera as my utility bat early on in the season.
Good hitter.
Yeah.
He's just not 4-8 catcher. A lot of times it's say 4-8 catcher. No, Ivan Herrera is just a legit.
No, I think he had a higher ex-WOBA last year than Nick Kurtz.
That's pretty crazy stuff. Let's talk about two-catcher leagues here. This is traditional roto leagues, still use two catchers in the starting lineup. Scott, how do you see yourself attacking two-catcher leagues this season? And has it changed from previous seasons?
So I think a minute ago I said the position is different than, I forget exactly how I phrased it, but it requires a different approach. Now that you're forcing me to comment on my approach, I'm not sure that I approach it that differently. I guess I'm less inclined. I was never that inclined to spend heavily at catcher, even in a two-catcher league. But there would be occasions where I thought the highest end guy or two stood out so much that I'd be willing to pursue him a little more aggressively. And I don't feel that way about anyone at catcher this year, just because I think there are so many redundancies. Like I said, I like Ben Rice, but I think Hunter Goodman is just as, at least from a 5x5 context, about as good and probably more bankable. Just to give one example, Cal Raleigh, of course, coming off the record-setting season, he's the one you would say, okay, this guy clearly distinguishes himself from that mass of high upside hitting catchers. But that's kind of priced in already. And
gotta pay the price, Scott.
Right. You're going to pay a second round pick to get Cal Raleigh. If I happen to, if my pick comes up at the time that's appropriate to take him, I won't shy away from taking him, but I'm not going to jump in at pick 12 and say I'm taking Cal Raleigh because he plays the scarce position and this gives me an advantage. So, in years past, I might have done that with like a William Contreras or a Salvador Perez way back when. But I'm not doing that at catcher this year. I'm basically just playing the tiers at catcher, honestly. Like if somebody in a higher tier like a Shea Langeliers or a Agustin Ramirez, if they are an obvious value or they're the last remaining player from a tier and I don't have any other obvious positional needs, okay, I'll go ahead and take them. I got 2 catcher spots to fill, so I'm not worried about blocking that position. But, if my first catcher ends up being Gabriel Moreno, I feel really good about Gabriel Moreno this year, so I'm fine with that too. It's just I'm not going to push especially hard to fill the position. But, I'm not going to be afraid to draft a high-end catcher either, knowing that I have a second catcher spot to fill.
I really would like to get at least one of my top 10 catchers, which ends with Yainer Diaz. Then I'll probably jump in on a young guy, someone like a Moreno or Kyle Teel, Francisco Alvarez, Carter Jensen as my catcher 2. I am a little bit more open-minded about double tapping the position earlier on in a 2-catcher league than I have been in years past, just because there there are a lot of numbers and data to show that the more successful teams are the ones that usually pay up for catcher. I think that probably is more so for deeper leagues, but I don't mind doing it. I did it in a slow draft that I just wrapped up. I got Salvador Perez at pick 85, Will Smith at 108. So if the price is right, if it falls that way, I don't really have a problem double tapping the position at top, like for 2 top 10 catchers this upcoming season. Before we hit the break, on the day this podcast is released, we are 5 days away from pitchers and catchers reporting. 15 days until spring games. 27 days until the World Baseball Classic.
It's too cold for that. Oof.
And 48 days until opening day. If you are pumped for the baseball season, hit that like button. If you want to win your fantasy baseball league, subscribe to our YouTube channel and enjoy all the free content. Let's take a quick break. When we return, we will jump into Catcher ADP right after this.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Ready or not, here I come. Let's go! Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today, it is our 2026 catcher preview, and let's jump into ADP. We are using Fantasy Pros average draft position, which is an aggregate of 5 different sources so far: CBS, Yahoo, NFBC, Fantrax, and RT Sports. As always, subject to change. ADPs are constantly moving, and if they include ESPN at some point, that will throw things off by quite a bit. So again, we will, as things change, we'll let you know. But there is only one place to start, and that is with the Big Dumper, who currently has an ADP of 15. So an early second-round pick. I mentioned it earlier, but he is coming off a historic season, the best ever by a catcher. 60 home runs, 110 runs scored, 125 RBI, 14 steals, a 948 OPS. It was insanity. And he is a huge advantage in terms of playing time. 705 plate appearances, led catchers by far, and that was the 11th most in all of baseball. He provided $44.50 of value in 12-team category leagues. Next closest was Hunter Goodman at $25. He scored 622 fantasy points on CBS. The next closest was William Contreras at 426. So Cal Raleigh just ran laps around the field. Chris, how did he get to this level, and will you pay an early to mid second round price to get him on your team?
I can answer the first question or the second question a lot more easily than the first question. I will almost certainly not be spending a top 20 or top 15 pick on a catcher. There are just too many ways that can go wrong. I know Cal Raleigh has been a workhorse, one of the most reliable options in terms of playing time. I know he's going to play a lot of DH. They got rid of their backup, their prized young prospect backup catcher. So Cal Raleigh is going to keep playing a ton. Let's not forget this time a year ago, he was not even a top 100 pick in ADP, I'm pretty sure. He had the best season ever by a catcher in between. I understand that, but I just don't think it makes very much sense to pay for the career year. And how did that career year happen? Well, Cal Raleigh is an excellent defensive player and an excellent hitter, which keeps his bat in the lineup all the time. The Mariners' offense played much better last season than they had in recent years. And he had one of those years where just absolutely everything came together. He got a little bit better at pretty much everything. His strikeout rate was a little bit better than the year before. His average exit velocity was a little bit better. His barrel rate was a little bit better. And you add it all up, and you have this huge, huge increase. Obviously, the 38% pulled air rate played a big part in these 60 homers because Cal Raleigh has pretty good raw power. It's not Aaron Judge. It's not James Wood. Like he's an above average power hitter who just optimized the heck out of his swing last year. And maybe that will prove sustainable. And we're talking about him as a 50 homer guy moving forward. There just aren't very many 50 homer guys. And at catcher, historically, there are no 50 homer guys. Like, that's not actually true, but I think it's pretty close to true, right? Was he the first 50-homer catcher?
He was the first 50-homer guy.
Yeah, okay. So, there's never been a 50-homer catcher before.
With 48.
48. Javi Lopez had 46 or something.
43.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Johnny Bench was somewhere in there too. But there have been very few 40-homer catchers, and there hadn't been any 50, and now there's a 60. I always struggle with the player coming off a historic, record-setting, mind-blowing type of season, because it's easy to say. It's the most obvious thing in the world to say he's not going to do that again. It was historic. Of course he's not going to do it again. But how much does he give back? That's really the question. That's the question nobody wants to address, because I don't think anybody knows the answer. Yes, he's not going to hit 60 home runs again. To say Cal Raleigh can't repeat it, okay, duh. But how much is he going to give back? Because that if he was going to repeat it, he might deserve to be the first player drafted. Nobody's drafting him like that. So how much is he giving back? Is he reverting to being a 30-homer guy? I doubt that. I doubt his home runs are halving. Is he a 40-homer guy? Is he a 45-homer guy? Is he a 50-homer guy? I think all of those outcomes are on the table. And
I tend to think 40 is the likeliest.
But even that from a catcher might justify a second-round pick. Especially since he's going to dominate in the other counting stats, too. It's going to be some batting average issues. But, I mean, it's kind of like having Kyle Schwarber, except with catcher eligibility instead of DH, if he's only a 40-homer guy.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, okay, yeah, and it makes sense. Don't pay for a career season. But you're not paying for a career season. You're paying for a reasonable assumption of regression to the career season. That's what a second-round pick is getting you.
So I just wrote down this kind of like modest projection of 230 to 240 with 45 home runs. I think that is fair coming off the season that he just had. I wouldn't use a second round pick on that myself, which probably means I won't draft Kyle Schwarber either in that range. And I realized that I wrote Cal Raleigh up in Bus 1.0. I don't think he's going to completely sink your season. I just think he's overvalued where he's being drafted. Over the past 4 years, the top scoring catcher saw on average a 23% drop in fantasy points the following season. Every player is different. I totally get that. Circumstances are different, all of that. Yes. But things happen at catcher that don't happen at other positions.
23% of losing 23% off 60 though is still like a 45 homer season.
Yeah. And I just said, that's exactly what I said. I think that is the most likely outcome for Cal Raleigh. I wouldn't use a second round pick on that myself.
Sure.
So,
and for what it's worth, the ATC projections, which projections are going to regress heavily, have him as the number 12 hitter. So projections say this is a totally justified pick. And that was with, that projection is 229 batting average, 40 homers, 85 runs, 102 RBI, 8 stolen bases. So a third of his homers are dropped, and it still has him as a top 12 player top 12 hitter, because a big part of it's the catcher, positional adjustment. I think his price is fine. It's just probably not going to beat me.
yeah,
That's ultimately what it comes down to.
I'll ask this for each player too. Are they better in roto or categories versus head-to-head points? I mean, look, Cal Raleigh, if he does what his projections say, he's probably just going to be good regardless of format. So I don't know that really matters. And even though he strikes out a lot, which hurts in a points league, he plays so much and he walks a lot too. So
yeah,
I think he's probably, if he hits those projections, he's probably just good regardless of format.
In years past, I would have said better roto player, but if he reaches a threshold that just makes him clearly the number one catcher, it's not going to matter what the format is. We should probably also mention he's one of the best base stealers at the position. Randomly stole 14 bases in addition to everything else last year.
It's a team thing, right? Josh Naylor did it.
Yeah,
I think he led the position in homers, RBI, runs, and steals last year.
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Well, did Agustin Ramirez end up with more steals than him?
Oh, actually, no.
Oh, yeah. I think among qualifiers he did, but Ramirez did get 16 steals.
Okay.
Yep. So we dropped down a few rounds of ADP, and you get 4 other names. William Contreras with an ADP of 57, Shea Langeliers at 63, Ben Rice at 70, and Hunter Goodman at 75. Those are rounds 5 through 7 of a 12-team league. Let's talk about William Contreras' down season that was derailed by a fractured left middle finger, which was publicly first reported in early May. Even with that, he finished as a top 4 catcher, regardless of format. He had a strong second half, 650 plus plate appearances 2 years in a row for Contreras. He did have surgery in the offseason to address the finger, expected to be a full go in spring training. I'm expecting him to bounce back. Chris, I like the player, William Contreras. I'm just usually looking to fill other needs in the 6th round of a draft. If he slipped a little bit, I think I would be totally fine drafting him. I don't have a problem with the player or the cost. I'm just usually always looking for something else at that point of the draft.
I'm totally open to drafting him at his price, especially more so when he drops a little bit. His NFBC ADP is around 51 since the start of January. That actually makes him the 3rd catcher off the board. I think that's great. I will take that every time because we basically had, 2 months where William Contreras was clearly limited by an injury. From the second half on, he was himself. He had a 281 batting average, 833 OPS, 191 ISO. In a good lineup, lots of playing time, really strong skill set. I see no reason to think William Contreras. Honestly, I can't really come up with a good argument for him not being the number 2 catcher.
I think in points leagues he certainly is,
Yeah.
because his skill set is well suited for that format in a way the other contenders for the number 2 spot isn't. And I think he's the same William Contreras. I think the second half showed that, and that William Contreras was a catcher I used to pay up for. And so I like the idea of drafting William Contreras in theory, or getting the same player at a discount. It's just that I'd pay up for him in the past because catcher was scarce, and now catcher is anything but scarce. So even though it's like, oh yeah, good value, William Contreras, I'm kind of with you, Frank, where at that point in the draft, I'm thinking, all these other great catchers are available though. I better target a different position instead.
Yeah, man. But you give me William Contreras' 2024 season with the 50th pick.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled. He was a $30 player that year, according to the player rater.
And you are getting a 2-round discount from where he was being drafted last year. The ADP was, he was a top 36 player. Now he's at 57. So you do drop down about 2 rounds. Again, I like the player. I would be fine with it. I think in the right situation, I could see myself drafting William Contreras. For him, format-wise, I think he's probably just good regardless of format, right? I mean, is there one that he excels at more than the other?
Points leagues, I would say, because his power manifests more as like extra base hits than home runs. Not that he's a bad home run hitter, and he also has good plate discipline.
But he's also pretty rare among catchers for being a very good source of batting average. So,
and he chips in a few steals too.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much even, maybe a slight edge in points leagues, but I think he's just the number 2 in all formats.
Let's talk about Shea Langeliers, ADP of 63. He continues to improve. He's coming off a career year, and that is with missing a month with an oblique strain. The area where he made the biggest improvement was in the plate discipline. He dropped his strikeout rate from 27% to 20%. But here's what I would caution people a little bit, and you guys tell me maybe I'm overthinking this a little bit. He had a huge second half, but he started chasing a lot more in that second half. His swinging strike rate went up. And I think he probably overperformed during that second half. To that, I think he probably underperformed a little bit in the first half. So I think overall he probably takes a little bit of a step back. I also don't think that he'll be a playing time standout like some of the other catchers just because DH is not available to him. Brent Rooker is the full-time DH. So he's going to play a lot at catcher, but he's not going to be this ultra standout the way a Raleigh or a William Contreras will be just because he's not going to get like these half off days where he just plays at DH. I don't think it's going to happen very much there. So I like the player. I think he probably takes a little bit of a step back. What do you guys think about Shea Langeliers?
Yeah, I think he's ranked appropriately. But I agree with basically everything you said. I mean, 31 homers, that was even though he missed most of June with the strained oblique. So it was more like a 35 homer pace, something like that for Shea Langeliers, which is incredible from a catcher. Overshadowed, obviously, by what Cal Raleigh did, but, incredible. StatCast estimates Shea Langeliers should have had 25% fewer homers than he actually did, which would still make him great, but I think it brings him a little bit closer to the pack, and makes him not somebody to pay up for. So, same approach that I laid out at the start of the podcast. If Shea Langeliers is an obvious value, he's the last remaining catcher in the tier, I'd be happy to take him. I'm not elevating him. So
here is the, $87 question when it comes to Shea Langeliers and a couple other players. Since over the past 3 seasons, Shea Langeliers was the 13th biggest overperformer of his expected WOBA of any hitter over the past 3 seasons combined. That was last season. Jacob Wilson in 2025 was the 6th biggest overperformer, and Nick Kurtz was the 4th biggest overperformer. So the question is this just life in Sacramento?
Could be.
I thought that too, but his numbers were better on the road than at home. So does that more of a case for Shea Langeliers?
I remember there was one season in the late 90s. It might have been Larry Walker's MVP season, one of those seasons. Maybe Todd Helton, someone in that Blake Street Bombers year. There was a baseball prospectus book that wrote about.
My kid was talking about this.
One of them was significantly better on the road than at home one year at Coors Field. And it's like, well, does that mean that Coors Field didn't give him an advantage that year? Well, obviously it did. Like, you still, just because he was better on the road than at home doesn't mean that he didn't benefit from playing in a good offensive environment at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get that.
So I just don't know. Like, I look at Shea Langeliers' 328x WOBA is not very good. Scott, I think you said he had 24 expected home runs and he hit 32 was the actual number?
31 was the actual number. Expected, I think, was 24. Yeah.
Okay. Like, I think you can definitely look at that and say, yeah, there's a lot of regression coming. But Sacramento might just be that kind of place. Like, Sacramento might just be not Coors Field, but like,
yeah,
it might be a supercharged Great American Ballpark. Yeah. And so I want to be more dismissive of Shea Langeliers than I am, because I think there's a chance that he's just in a super advantageous ballpark that he can take advantage of.
I swear my 8-year-old was just telling me about that Larry Walker.
Was it Larry Walker? Yeah.
Yes, his 1997 season, more home runs and a higher OPS on the road than at home.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? From the mouths of babes.
Yeah, there's a baseball prospectus behind the numbers, I think, is what the book was called that they wrote about that.
Yeah, I guess just a yes or no. Are you guys in on Shea Langeliers at cost right now?
Sure.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not enthused by it, but it's fine.
Yep. For the format for Langeliers, I think if the K rate remains at 2025 levels, he's probably just great in both formats. If the K rate regresses a bit, probably better in roto or categories. Ben Rice. Everybody loves Ben Rice, and that is the problem. So I will let you guys talk about why everybody is so excited about him. But at the end of the day, everything comes down to draft cost. If you look at his Fantasy Pros ADP, Ben Rice is at 71 on CBS.
That's great. 84
on Yahoo. 76 on Fantrax.
Great.
65 on RT Sports. All of that is doable. Over the past 2 weeks at the NFBC, his ADP is 46, which is the second catcher off the board, also ahead of names like Bryce Harper, Matt Olson, and Rafael Devers. So, Scott, with that said, why do you love Ben Rice, and how early are you willing to draft him?
I love Ben Rice so much, and I'm glad you broke it down that way, because I think sometimes we get in the kind of this NFBC bubble because it's the most available ADP data, and everyone in the industry is citing it, and so they treat it as gospel. But a lot of people in their home leagues that aren't really on it, NFBC, are going to aren't going to see Ben Rice's value inflated in that way. And so I think it's still worth treating him like a breakout player, because I do think he's going to be a breakout player this year. You could argue he just had a breakout season, but it's going to get even better. He hit only 255 last year, slugged only 499. The expected stats said 283, 557. Like, he was one of the biggest, for as good as Ben Rice was last year, he was one of the biggest underachievers according to StatCast. Now, a lot of times when that happens, it's because the pull air rate is low. Not the case for Ben Rice. It was a bright red 25.2%, which for a left-handed hitter at Yankee Stadium should pay off even more. So I think there is a lot of improvement to come here for Ben Rice, but it's not without risk. He is a left-handed batter, which creates platoon risk by nature. We saw Aaron Boone was, reluctant to use him sometimes against lefties last year. Now, he says the plan is to play him every day at first base, but plans change, particularly now that they have 4 outfielders for 3 spots, and one of those outfielders, Cody Bellinger, started out as a first baseman. I could see how Ben Rice's playing time still gets chipped away, even though we're not expecting that to be the case today. So that's why you don't want to go crazy and draft him according to his best case scenario. But if you can get him in the 65, 70 range, absolutely, because he might end up performing more like a top 40 guy.
Yeah, I was going to just point out the downside as well. The Yankees have been linked to Ty France and Paul Goldschmidt, right? I mean, if those guys come in, they're veteran, right-handed hitting first baseman. It seems like they are coming in for one sole purpose, and then maybe it's just to be an insurance policy for Ben Rice, but I would think that they probably play against some tough lefties. So that hasn't happened yet, but I think that is part of the downside if something like that does happen. Or even if Ben Rice struggles against lefties early on, he could lose at bats against left-handed pitching. So again, those are some of the downsides, but I mean, everything that we look into and talk about all the time, StatCast data, hard hit rate, exit velocity, expected numbers, plate discipline, Ben Rice was really, really good at all of that stuff last year. Like, not even really good. By ex-Woba, one of the best in all of baseball last season. So I totally...
And he was a monster in the minors. Like, I noticed it at the time, but nobody wanted to call him a prospect, so I was like, I guess he's not a prospect. I hate when that happens, because he looks like he could be a monster in the majors too.
I will make the bear case for Ben Rice a little later.
Okay. Let's get into, from a format perspective, where would Ben Rice be better? Roto categories or head-to-head points?
If he plays every day, it won't matter. If playing time is an issue, then it'll be Roto.
It'll be Roto, yeah.
Let's talk about Hunter Goodman, who is coming off a huge breakout season. His preseason ADP was 376. He finished as a top 3 catcher in both formats. The breakout is backed up by minor league numbers where he hit for a ton of power. He hits the ball hard. He pulls it in the air. Should be a playing time standout with the Rockies. Obviously, they're a bad team. He got 39 games in at DH last season, and he was consistent. Just 1 month with an OPS below 800 last season. If I was to nitpick, plate discipline stuff, swinging strike rate is very high here for Hunter Goodman. But Chris, I mostly believe in what Hunter Goodman did last season, and it seems like enthusiasm is lacking a little bit for him for whatever reason.
Yes. When we get to the players we draft the most, I think Hunter Goodman is going to be my answer, because I just think there's a lot of skepticism around him. And I don't want to say it's entirely unwarranted, but I think it's in many ways unwarranted. And I think most of it comes down to the 359 WOBA versus the 324 ex-WOBA, right? That's a 35-point gap. It is interesting that Shea Langeliers seems to be getting less of the skeptical treatment than Hunter Goodman, despite a very similar gap. But I guess Langeliers at least was useful in 2024.
What was the lower number?
324 versus 359.
What does 324 refer to, though?
Ex-WOBA.
Ex-WOBA, okay.
Yeah. So his gap between his WOBA and ex-WOBA is about the same as Shea Langeliers. Well, Hunter Goodman plays at Coors Field.
Yeah.
Sacramento might be a great hitter's park. I feel very confident in saying it's not Coors Field. It's not. And over the entirety of the StatCast era, players at Coors Field outperformed their ex-WOBA, or players on the Rockies, players on the Rockies and hitters against the Rockies outperformed their ex-WOBAs by about 14 points. The next best park is Fenway, where they outperformed by about 6 points. So that's a sizable gap, and I don't think Sacramento is going to bridge that gap. So while that is more than Hunter Goodman outperformed, if Hunter Goodman regresses to, I don't know, a 260 hitter, I think the power is legit. He was a big power guy in the minors. He was like a 40 homer guy at AAA. I still think he's going to be a 25 to 30 homer guy.
A drop from 278 to 260 seems fairly inconsequential to me in terms of, like, it makes a difference, but not really in terms of how you value him. He's actually my number 2, Goodman, for Roto. I have William Contreras number 2 in points, Goodman number 2 in Roto, because, Goodman, low walk rate, high strikeout rate. He does suffer in the points format, which is part of the reason why I was able to get him after pick 100 in that head-to-head points mock we just did. But I agree. I don't really. I mean, clearly the consensus doesn't have him number 2, so there's a skepticism there that I don't share. One of the things that encourages me about Goodman, you look at his month-to-month breakdown. I don't like overdoing this, but a lot of times for an unknown quantity like him, he could fake it for like a month and a half and end up with a stat line that's inflated because of it. Not the case for Goodman. He was very, very steady all 6 months.
Yep. And as you pointed out, Scott, Goodman better in Roto and categories because he strikes out quite a bit. But he plays a lot, so that does help cancel it out a little bit from a volume perspective. Let's take our final break. When we return, we'll continue on with catcher ADP. We'll get into sleepers, breakouts, and busts. All of that right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today, our catcher preview here, and let's continue on with ADP. After Hunter Goodman, you drop down about 25 picks. You get 4 catchers going in close proximity. Agustin Ramirez right at pick 100, Salvador Perez at 105, Will Smith at 109, and Drake Baldwin at 118. These are rounds 9 to 10 in a 12-team league. And let's talk about Agustin Ramirez, big name prospect who came over in the Jazz Chisholm trade back in 2024. He got called up in late April, and he was great for fantasy. He only hit 231. He deserved better. 21 homers, 16 steals, which led the position. A unique skill set from a catcher, and he could be a playing time standout. He's an awful defensive catcher, and the Marlins have a prospect coming in Joe Mack. I think that might just mean Agustin Ramirez becomes their everyday DH. Maybe he plays first base, but Chris, some way, somehow, I think Agustin Ramirez will play every day for the Marlins.
I think he's going to play as often as he deserves to, and he might deserve to play every day, is the way I would put it. And
he pretty much did last year.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's the thing is that you look at his profile and you think he's a much better roto player than a points player, but after he was called up, I'm pretty sure he was still a top 5 catcher from the day he was called up in points leagues.
He doesn't strike out very much.
Yeah, he doesn't strike out very much.
Same head-to-head points per game as Ben Rice. 2.79 versus 2.78.
Yeah, that pretty good. Very different methods of getting there, but yeah, I think Agustin Ramirez is a good bet for 25 homers. I think he's a decent bet for 20 steals. Sounds like the Marlins are going to run quite a bit this season, and yeah, I think the 231 batting average is probably lower than I'd expect from Agustin Ramirez. So I think there should be a gap between him and the group ahead of him that we just talked about, but I kind of think the group ahead of him are all more or less the same. I have them ranked within 12 spots of each other, and then it's only 10 spots until Agustin Ramirez. So I think this is basically, maybe Ramirez is in a tier of his own, maybe he's the end of that last tier, but I don't think there's that much difference between him and those guys.
Yeah, I think, I shared the point per game average between Ben and Rice. What they also share is that they both underachieved their expected stats. So Ramirez hit 231, XBA of 259. He slugged 413, X slug of 457. And like, he was great just with the numbers he had. So if he actually lives up to that, the skill set is very impressive here. Struck out less than 20% of the time as a rookie who hits the ball really hard. His hardest hit ball, 116.9 miles per hour. Only 12 players topped that last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just a really unique skill set, too, when you consider the power and speed. And he did that in the minors, too. 25 homers, 22 steals the year before in 2024 in the minor league. So I think from a format perspective, he's probably better in roto and categories. But the playing time and the volume and the lack of strikeouts, I think he's probably just going to be really good in both formats. So I like Agustin Ramirez quite a bit. Let's get into Salvador Perez. I get it. He's turning 36 years old in May, and it could just fall off a cliff. But if you want to talk about consistency, a top 7 catcher in fantasy 6 years in a row now for Salvador Perez. 30 homers, 100 RBI last season, back-to-back years with 100-plus RBI. He actually underperformed his expected stats by a lot last season. And I think you brought this up in the past, Chris, like Miguel Cabrera and kind of like older, slower guys could underperform their expected stats. But, I mean, it was drastic for Salvador Perez. So I'm not sure it should be that big of a gap for him. And we really haven't seen any signs of decline, man. If you dig in, he crushes fastball still. The bat speed is fine. K-rate has actually been better the past 2 years. His zone contact is fine where it's at. On top of all that, he's a playing time standout, gets games at DH and first base. And Kauffman Stadium, they're pulling the walls in a little bit, which should theoretically help for power. So, Scott, at 30, I get it. He's 36 years old. I am still very in on Salvador Perez.
Yeah, I mean, the only knocks on him are that he's getting older and that there are so much other talent here that even though he's the same player, he gets pushed down just because others are elevated. But he's still one of the safest bets for home runs and RBI at the position. Now, doesn't provide a lot beyond that, but provides a lot of that for a catcher. And I think I would have no qualms about taking him as my number one. I'm not going to reach for it, obviously, but if he's getting overlooked just because he's 35 or 36, soon to be 36, then yeah, I'll happily take him because he's shown no signs of decline. And the Royals have done a good job of easing him into old age by playing him a little more DH every year. And I think it's going to be more than ever this year with Carter Jensen emerging.
Yeah. Did you guys see the MLB.com piece from Mike Petriello today on February 4th about the fences in Kauffman Stadium? So 2 things. One, I didn't realize that they did this already once in the 90s. They moved the fences in basically by the same amount and lowered them by basically the same amount, and then moved them back out for some reason. I don't understand that. But the real takeaway here that I wanted to highlight is something that we talked about when this was announced, where I was just looking at the batted ball charts for like Vinny P and Salvador Perez and Bobby Witt. And Salvador Perez seems like he hits a lot more batted balls in the area where he will benefit from this. And that is what this piece showed. Salvador Perez from 2021 to 2025 would have hit 19 more home runs. Now, that's 5 seasons worth, so it's about 4 homers per season. Pasquantino is 10 over 4 seasons. So I think a lot of people initially reacted, ooh, great for Vinny P. I think it might be good for Vinny P. I think the likeliest outcome of anyone is Salvador Perez hits at least a few more. Like, the problem is someone on the Royals is probably going to hit 6 more home runs in 2026 than they would have otherwise. I can't guarantee it's going to be Salvador Perez. It might be Michael Garcia or someone. But Salvador Perez is the most likely candidate for that. And I do think you can bump his total up a bit. I still think he's going to be a very bad source of batting average. And one thing that I like to look at when we're talking about guys who underperform their expected stats is, was this a one-off? In Salvador Perez's case, he has underperformed his ex-WOBA by 46 points last year. Okay, that's a big outlier. The year before, though, it was 26. And the year before that, it was 24. So, yeah, I expect him to be a little better in 2026 than 2025, at least, relative to whatever skills decline comes along with age. But I don't think you look at his ex-WOBA and say, that's what he's going to do next year. And
Right.
the shorter fences will lead to more home runs. They will probably lead to a roughly equivalent number of more outs. You're losing home runs with the longer fences, but you're gaining doubles and singles probably. So that's one thing to keep in mind with the Kauffman Stadium changes in general.
Yeah. For Salvi, he hit 236 last year. His XBA was 273. I wouldn't expect that,
No.
but Chris, even if
245,
he hit 250 with 30 home runs, I mean, that's much more palatable. And, 30 homers, 100 RBI, 250. I mean, that's
awesome.
Guess what? That's probably another top 6 or 7 fantasy season from Salvador Perez at the catcher position. Format for him, he is better in roto and categories on a per game basis, but again, the volume just helps him a lot in head-to-head points leagues. So I think he's probably better in categories, but I think he's just really good in both. Will Smith of the Dodgers, after trending down for a few years, mind you, still very fine seasons that he was having, he bounced back last year. He had a career high 296 batting average with a 901 OPS, which was his highest since the COVID shortened season. Big jump in quality of contact for Will Smith. But there are questions. Can he maintain those gains? There's also no way for him to be a playing time standout because Shohei Ohtani is on this team, which limits Will Smith's ultimate upside. Scott, I think Will Smith is totally fine. I'm not overly excited to draft him, but I'm not opposed to it either if it's the right spot.
Yeah, that's basically it. His percentages were great last year. Head-to-head points per game, he was 3.01, which was topped only by Cal Raleigh, of course, and Shea Langeliers. So, a real standout on a per game basis. But that's the rub for Will Smith, because as you point out, you're not getting DH at bats with Shohei Ohtani there, and sits pretty often for a starting catcher. So this is, among the names we've brought up so far, this is the one with the clearest playing time concerns. And I think that makes Will Smith in this loaded catcher pool a fine starter, but not one anybody should get excited about.
I'm kind of out on the price, at least. You're kind of just getting batting average from him.
But he's someone who just doesn't hurt you anywhere, which
pretty good run in RBI production for
is
a catcher.
half the battle.
Last season, it was 64 runs and 61 RBI.
Did he miss time with injury? Because
he did miss a little bit of time. He dealt with
What was the injury?
a hairline fracture in his right hand.
Okay.
Because he was only 110 games when normally he's like 125.
125,
But he's probably going to get you around like 70 to 75 runs in RBI.
I guess that doesn't hurt you at catcher, but it
definitely helps you. It helps like, when you consider the median, right? I guess at catcher, but I guess if it's a one catcher league, he's probably not in the top half.
I guess he's fine. I don't think he's likely to be anything more than fine for your fantasy team. I think you can and should aim higher. Like, okay, maybe he gets to 70 runs and 70 RBI. He's like 6th or 7th at the position. Again, that's fine. It doesn't hurt you, but the only clear standout for Will Smith right now is batting average in his profile, and that's super fickle. As we saw with Will Smith, adding 50 points to his batting average from 2024 to 2025, or Yainer Diaz in the opposite direction. If Yainer Diaz drastically outperforms Will Smith next season, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think Yainer Diaz is going to have a pretty significant playing time edge on Will Smith.
Is there a format that you think Will Smith is better in?
It's got to be Roto.
The skill set is points.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, points per game very high, but because of all the lost playing time, it's probably a wash. But I could understand why Chris says Roto.
Yeah. Drake Baldwin going a little bit behind Will Smith, according to Fantasy Pros ADP, an incredible rookie season here. He won National League Rookie of the Year, hit 274, 19 homers, 80 RBI, 810 OPS for Baldwin. Not really much that you can poke holes at here. He hits the ball hard, good plate discipline, 80th percentile or better in xWOBA, xBA, xSlug, average EV, hard hit rate, bat speed. And again, he did all that as a rookie. The splits look good here.
Good defender.
Yeah. And Scott, we recently got an update that his teammate Sean Murphy will not return from hip surgery until mid-May at the earliest, which I think is great news for Baldwin's playing time.
Yeah, it's good timing that we found that out before recording this preview, because that was really the knock on Drake Baldwin. His backup is so good that he's going to have playing time issues. Well, if his backup's out for the first quarter of the season, his backup's not so good anymore. Like, there's going to be plenty of Drake Baldwin, and he may just perform so well that they've kept the DH spot pretty open, at least so far. So maybe that'll be a way to keep playing Sean Murphy some. But he may get Wally pipped even beyond what happened to him last year. Because Drake Baldwin, at the risk of overstating the case, I look at the hitting profile for Drake Baldwin. It looks pretty flawless. He could stand to pull the ball more.
Put it in the air a little bit more. Yeah. But
he makes a ton of contact. He hits the ball very hard. This was true at AAA too. Like another guy who looking at the data, I really wish I ranked him higher in retrospect, because there were some exciting things going on for him at AAA 2 years ago. And obviously it played out that way in the majors. I think I'm really, now that we have that Sean Murphy news, I'm really tempted to move Baldwin up a couple spots. I mean, it's hard because there are so many great options ahead of him too, but like he's right there with them now, when before that playing time concern was holding him back.
Yeah. I mean, I could see an argument for Baldwin over Will Smith. The thing that Will Smith has over him is just the track record. He's done it for so long and the floor is so high. But I mean, based on the skill set we saw from Baldwin, he seems like a high floor player too. It's just we don't really have that track record to fall back on. But everything out diving in, everything looks great here for Drake Baldwin. Let's take a little break here from ADP. We will get to other names. I know there's still Yainer, Diaz, Adley Rutschman, who is, my gosh, what do you say about Adley Rutschman? Ivan Herrera, we'll talk about those guys. Let's run through sleepers, breakouts, plus favorite to draft at catcher, and let's try and keep this night nice and tight if we can. Chris, over to you for a sleeper at catcher.
Yeah, so my sleepers and breakouts are kind of mixy matchy, I guess, but I'll say Francisco Alvarez here, who I've talked a lot about this offseason, but I think he has not gotten enough credit for how good he was after coming back from his demotion to AAA. Basically, the entire second half, he missed some time with, I think, a fractured finger and a ligament issue in his thumb, and still managed to hit 276 with a 921 OPS. He had 8 homers in, I think it was about 45 games, something like that. That was after he hit 12 homers in 26 games or whatever it was at AAA. I think that demotion just kind of fixed Francisco Alvarez. He is still only 24 years old. He might be younger than Drake Baldwin, actually, despite the fact that Francisco Alvarez has been around forever, it seems. Let me check that. Yeah, he's 8 months younger than Drake Baldwin. That's not a knock against Drake Baldwin. It's just a reminder of how quickly Francisco Alvarez moved. He had a 25 homer season as a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about Francisco Alvarez. I think he is probably the best value at the catcher position and someone I'm extremely excited about this year.
Francisco Alvarez, 17th catcher off the board right now, according to Fantasy Pros. 232 is the ADP. It is much higher in the NFBC, 180. Those drafts, a lot of those are 2-catcher leagues, so it would make sense why those names are going higher. But Alvarez going right in the mix of a lot of those young catchers. He is one of them that still has a lot of upside here. Scott, how about a sleeper for you at catcher?
Okay, we're doing sleepers before breakouts, huh?
That's usually how it works.
That's usually how it works. Okay, so I'm going to go. My favorite one is Carter Jensen.
Yep.
He's one of my favorite players, period. And I hate that one catcher drafts in before it feels appropriate to take him just because the position's so deep. So I love drafting in 2-catcher leagues. Here's the story of Carter Jensen, okay? 94 mile per hour average exit velocity at AAA. That was a number matched by only 5 major leaguers, including the 3 50-homer guys, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, and Kyle Schwarber. 94 mile per hour average at AAA. Gets to the majors at the end of the season. It goes to 95.4 mile per hour average in the 20 games he played for the Royals. Actually got better. That was topped by only 1 qualifying major league batter. So he hits the ball as hard as anyone. And he plays catcher. And you know the one guy who beat him, the one qualifier who had the higher average, it was O'Neal Cruz. He doesn't share O'Neal Cruz's flaws, Carter Jensen, as a hitter. He has terrific plate discipline. Like, it's a genuine strength of his. That time in the majors, 13% walk rate, 17% strikeout rate. His pull air rate was also on the higher end of the spectrum. So he's great. And obviously it showed up in the numbers, whether you're looking in the majors for those 20 games or the minors. I guess you brought up, he's a left-handed hitter, Frank, maybe as you'd expect for a young left-handed hitter. He doesn't hit lefties so well, but the Royals didn't seem to care down the stretch. Even with Salvador Perez there, they were playing both of them every day. It was a short span of time. Obviously, Jensen only got 20 total games in the majors, but he started against the last 3 lefties the Royals faced. And I think he's going to be an everyday player in that same role. Him and Salvador Perez swapping between catcher and DH. And I think he will make a very strong Rookie of the Year case because that hitting profile, it's kind of flawless too in a different way from Drake Baldwin. But very exciting potential for Carter Jensen.
And same thing that we spoke about with Salvador Perez. Carter Jensen pulls the ball in the air quite a bit, and I think he is someone that could benefit from the walls being pulled in a little bit there in Kauffman Stadium.
The one thing I want to say is I do think this is going to be a pretty 3 true outcomes-y profile. For people who don't know, 3 true outcomes: walks, home runs, strikeouts. Because while he didn't strike out he didn't strike out very much in the majors, but it was like 28% at AAA last season.
Yeah.
It was? Okay.
And he is an extremely patient, bordering on passive hitter. His swing rate overall last season was only 38%. His swing rate on pitches in the strike zone was 61%, which was 23rd percentile at AAA.
I think Yainer Diaz's swing rate was double that, honestly.
Okay,
yeah,
so just to be fair about the strikeout rate for Carter Jensen, yes, it was 28% at AAA, but he spent the majority of last season at AA, and between the two, it was under 25%. So it was really just AAA where he had strikeout issues. Then obviously,
but I don't think
short major league sample.
Yeah. My point is just the short major league sample, I think, is the outlier. I think he's
AAA is the outlier.
Well, no. That he's not going to be a 30% strikeout rate guy, but I don't think he's going to be an average strikeout rate guy. I think just the passivity, like you only swing at 60% of pitches in the zone, you're just going to get in a lot of 2 strikeouts that way. So I do think I agree. There's a lot to like. I just think it's more likely to be a 250 batting average than a 275 batting average.
Yep. Sleeper for me is Gabriel Moreno, who it feels like he's been around forever. He's only turning 26 years old in February. Has always had great discipline. He's always hit the ball hard. Last year, he started to raise the launch angle from 8.8 degrees to 14.4 in 2025. He dropped the ground ball rate from 50% to 39%. His pulled air rate nearly doubled year over year. And after returning from injury, his final 30 games, he finished strong. Hit 311, 4 homers, 853 OPS. His ground ball rate was just 26% during that span. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career. I totally get that. But if he could stay on the field for 120 games in the middle of that D-backs lineup, which is still really good, I think he can hit, 280, 15 to 20 homers, good counting stats, and probably chip in a couple steals too. It could look like a William Contreras light type season here from Gabriel Moreno if it all comes together and he stays healthy, obviously. So
yeah, it might not even be light if he stays healthy. I'm with you. Gabriel Moreno, it was my other sleeper choice for all the reasons you said. And like in a points league, especially, even as like a single digit homer guy, he was still pretty darn valuable because his plate discipline is so good. If he's able to continue with this improved launch angle, which he certainly hits the ball hard enough to put it over the fence, then the upside in points leagues, especially for Gabriel Moreno, is much higher than I think most people realize.
All right, Chris, let's go over to a breakout at catcher. Who do you have?
Ben Rice, Agustin Ramirez, Yainer, Diaz, if we want to call a bounce back a breakout. No, my Samuel Basallo is my official breakout pick at the position. I'm just going to buy the guy who's that young and I think he was the third best hitter in the International League last season while being 20 basically the entire season. He hits the ball incredibly hard. He has a good approach at the plate. He's going to play a lot between DH and catcher. If anything happens to Pete Alonso, he's probably going to play a lot of first base. I think there are risks with Samuel Basallo, but the price is so cheap. And this is one of those players where I think the upside kind of builds on itself, right? Like if he hits as well as I think he can, he's going to play every day. And if he's playing every day, it's just going to lead to huge, huge numbers. So I think his price is super reasonable for how high the upside is, and I love buying in on Samuel Basallo for that. But I could have gone with Basallo as my sleeper and Francisco Alvarez as my breakout. They're kind of interchangeable because they're both super cheap right now.
Basallo, the 14th catcher off the board. His ADP is 222 according to Fantasy Pros. And look, I think long-term he is going to be awesome. I think the sky is the limit for Samuel Basallo. I just see a big range of outcomes for him this season, a wide range of outcomes where on the high end, man, I would not be surprised if we're drafting him as like the top catcher in
number one catcher. That's the ceiling.
The low end could be if he gets off to a slow start, all the names that the Orioles have, he could wind up back in the minors. He could lose playing time. Like, again, the floor I think is really low. I think the ceiling is just sky high for
and I love taking him in a one catcher league because, as I pointed out, I mean, you could get him for cheap in that format, and the upside is there that it will matter in a one catcher league. But as I pointed out earlier, if you do get that bust scenario from Basallo, there are going to be so many other quality options to pivot to.
Yeah, I will say a couple things he's got going in his favor though. Already signed a long-term extension, so there's no playing time shenanigans to be benefited from. You look at the organization, they got nothing besides Adley Rutschman and Samuel Basallo. There is like Sam Huff, I guess, is the break glass in case of emergency catcher
at catcher. But I think the playing time you presume Rutschman's healthy and he's catching basically every day. So it's really they have a lot of first base and DH options.
No, that's
where Basallo's going to have to get his at bats.
Yep. All right, Scott, let's go over to you for your official breakout pick. Probably someone we talked about already.
Well, yeah, I mean, in my breakouts 1.0, I had 3 catchers in there. One was Ben Rice, who we covered thoroughly. One was Agustin Ramirez, who we covered thoroughly. The one we haven't covered thoroughly yet is technically not a catcher, but we expect him to pick up catcher eligibility. It's Ivan Herrera. So I'll go ahead and talk about him here. I think all he really needs to do is play more. And I don't mean play more often because he played basically every day. He, after he returned from he had a couple IL stints, but after he returned from the final one, the second of the IL stints, he started 65 of the Cardinals' 66 games. So Ivan Herrera, everyday player. But I think people just kind of look at the at-bats he had and with those 2 IL stints and think, okay, yeah, the profile is kind of interesting, but he doesn't play every day. No, he does. He definitely does. And so if you just prorate his numbers over 162 games, 29 home runs is what it comes out to go along with a 284, 373, 464 slash line. His head-to-head point per game average, 3.08, was higher than Jarren Duran, higher than Vinny Pasquantino, higher than Manny Machado. And this is an everyday player who we think is going to have catcher eligibility. I don't know that I need to say much more than that.
Yeah, look, it could turn out to be a cheat code in fantasy this season. Ivan Herrera's ADP is 163 right now. And again, he's utilized only to start the season. We don't know exactly when he's going to gain catcher eligibility, but if it happens by the end of April, this could be a huge steal for anyone who drafted him. I think if he had catcher eligibility right now, he might be going 100 picks higher than he is right now. I mean, he'd probably be a top 75 pick.
And it's already starting. In the NFBC, since January 1st, he's up to 151. People have caught on.
But
at
even
least in NFBC,
rightly
they've
so.
caught on.
Only 151. Like 151, if Ivan Herrera was catcher eligible, I would be ranking him probably as a top 70 player. I think he's right there with Ben Rice and Shea Langeliers and Hunter Goodman. He might be the best pure hitter of all those guys. So I think Ivan Herrera is just a potential superstar as a hitter.
If you look at xWOBA from last season, which considers quality of contact, strikeouts, and walks, 371 for Ivan Herrera last year. That was the same amount as Cal Raleigh. It was better than Fernando Tatis, Bryce Harper, Devers, Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, that is the level of hitter that Ivan Herrera was last season. Breakout for me, lots of same names: Ben Rice, Agustin Ramirez. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I do like those names quite a bit if you can get them around or a little bit below ADP. A bust pick at catcher, Chris, this is where you wanted to make the case against Ben Rice.
Yeah, and look, the case against Ben Rice is not really the case against Ben Rice. It's the case against Ben Rice's price in recent high-stakes drafts. If he's going to be like a top 45 pick, I just think we've squeezed way too much out of him. I think he certainly has that upside, but I think one thing people are doing is just looking at the 395 xWOBA and saying, well, if he just does that, and like, yeah, if he just does that, he's one of the 12 best hitters in baseball. Ben Rice probably isn't one of the 12 best hitters in baseball. I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't know if, scorching hot, whatever, but like, I will take the under on Ben or the over on Ben Rice being the 12th best hitter in baseball. xWOBA is not a perfect carryover from one year to the next. There will be fluctuations. There's still plenty of room for the 395 xWOBA to regress and for Ben Rice to still be a great hitter. But the other thing I want to point out is, one, pulled batted balls are any batted ball hit to the, in his case as a left-handed hitter, to the right third of the field. But we know, especially at Yankee Stadium, that a ball hit to the center field portion of the pulled third is much less valuable than right down the line, right? It's just much deeper in left and right.
It goes out a little bit further in the power alleys, but I mean, really, all of right field is
even just not even just Yankee Stadium.
Yeah,
every single park, basically, maybe not Wrigley Field, but every single park, right center is deeper than the right field corner. And Ben Rice does hit a higher percentage of his pulled air balls to that right center range. And I only point that out to say that we have parts of two major league seasons totaling 188 games with Ben Rice, and he has underperformed his expected WOBA significantly in both. It was by about 36 points last season. It was significantly more the year before in a smaller sample size. I'm not saying I think Ben Rice is fated to underperform his expected stats forever. I am just saying that he has so far, and there might be reasons to explain that. He's not a particularly great athlete. He's a left-handed hitter. You can still shift a little bit. I think he's being treated as if it's almost, in these high-stakes leagues at least, he's being treated as if it's almost a guarantee that he is this huge difference maker beyond Hunter Goodman, who is 20 picks behind him, I think, since January 1st. And 30 picks ahead of Agustin Ramirez and 40 picks ahead of Drake Baldwin. And it's in my bust list, I put 2 categories of busts. I like the player, but I don't like the price. And I don't like the player. Ben Rice is firmly in the first category, where it's almost entirely about price and a little bit about there are reasons to think he may not be quite as good as he seems.
All right, Scott, over to you for a bus pick. Make it quick.
So part of what makes the talent at this position so exciting is that I don't see a ton of downside potential. I think the most obvious would be Cal Raleigh. I said his home run total's not going to have in all likelihood, but he might just go back to being pre-2025 Cal Raleigh, and if that's the case, it's going to be a terrible use of a second-round pick. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. We talked about the bust case for Samuel Basayo already, but I think the cost there is not prohibitive given the risk. So I think the one catcher I'm going to stress here as somebody who I really don't see myself drafting at cost is Alejandro Kirk. I don't know why, given the gobs of upside at this position, how Alejandro Kirk has crept close to the top 12 in ADP. I have him 18th, and to me, it wasn't a hard decision. I think he has some skills. He's really, really good at putting the bat to the ball, and had some improvement in exit velocity and launch last year that helped him tap into a little more power. But he gave a lot of that back in the second half. Had a pretty rough second half with exit velocities declining and putting more balls on the ground again. So I don't know how durable those improvements are for Kirk. And even if they are durable, I just don't think the upside compares. I think you're talking about 270 hitting 15 homer guy, maybe 280 hitting 15 homer guy. But, Carter Jensen has far more upside than that. I think Gabriel Moreno has more upside than that. So it's not a bust in the sense that, like, I think Alejandro Kirk is just going to be horrible and we'll never hear from him again, but just really underwhelming for the cost.
I mean,
he has had inconsistencies from year to year too. Like last year is eerily similar to his 2022, which were both great seasons. 23 and 24 were really, really bad years in between for Alejandro Kirk.
And also, like, I think he's being drafted as if he's safe, right? I think that's what it comes down to. But the 2023 seasons and 2024 seasons were bad. Like Frank said, he hit 251 across those 2 seasons. He had 13 homers combined. And then there's also this. Most catchers put you at a deficit in the counting stat categories. I've pointed this out numerous times. Alejandro Kirk, in a very good year, scored 45 runs last season.
Yeah. Compared to what, 75 RBI?
76. And even 76 is like, that's fine, but I think it was like 5th or 6th best at the position. I don't see things getting much better than what we got from Alejandro Kirk last season. And what we got from Alejandro Kirk was okay.
And let me stress it again. You said he wasn't very good in 2023 and 2024. He wasn't very good in the second half of 2025 either.
Yeah.
Bust pick for me is going to be Cal Raleigh. Spoke about this earlier. I don't think he's someone that sinks your team. I just do not think he's going to pay off second round value. Just give me a name for this category. Your favorite C1, catcher 1 to draft. That's all things included. Skills, price, etc. Just a name. Scott, favorite C1.
Mostly because of price, Hunter Goodman.
Chris?
Hunter Goodman or William Contreras.
For me, it is Ben Rice if his ADP is 70. If not, it's Agustin Ramirez. Favorite C2 to draft, your catcher 2 in a 2-catcher league. Scott?
I'm going to say Carter Jensen, but Gabriel Moreno is close.
Chris?
Francisco Alvarez every time.
And for me, it's going to be Gabriel Moreno as well. Let's get back into ADP here and take a look at the names where we left off was with Drake Baldwin. You drop down another 30 picks after him. You get Yainer Diaz with an ADP of 149, Adley Rutschman at 155, Ivan Herrera at 163. These are rounds 13 to 14 in a 12-team league. Yainer Diaz, Chris, we spoke about this earlier. You're getting a 70-pick discount on where he was being drafted last year. Everything came down except for his home run total, which went up a little bit. He got off to an awful start, but from May on, he hit 271 with 18 home runs and a 739 OPS. He is a flawed hitter. He is extremely aggressive. We know that. I think that's going to cause maybe some streakiness in his profile. We talk about that a lot with guys like Pete Crow Armstrong. What do you think about Diaz for this year, Chris?
I think we basically learned nothing new about Yainer Diaz last season. I think we saw him run hot, and then we saw him run cold in 2025, and I think that's it. And okay, yeah, I mean, I guess we learned that his floor is not a 290 hitter, but that should never have been the expectation, despite what he did in his first 2 seasons. So I think last year was just pretty natural variance. None of the underlying skill set indicators were any different really last season. I think he's a great bounce back candidate. Do I think he deserves to be like, I think last year he was the number 3 catcher off the board? No, I don't. I don't think he should be that. But I think he's perfectly fine as a top 10 guy. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have him than Will Smith, actually.
I have him just behind Will Smith, but I think Yainer Diaz is fine. I don't think that he can be a plate appearance standout unless injuries happen. But even then, like if Yordan Alvarez gets hurt, like they have Paredes and they still have Christian Walker. Maybe these things get figured out with a trade or again, like multiple injuries. But I just don't really see how he's going to be a plate appearance standout this year. That is Yainer Diaz.
Terrible points league player, by the way.
Yeah, he's like the Michael Harris of catcher.
Yeah, I'm sure you want to.
He had a 284 OBP last season.
Yeah.
But I will point out with Victor Caratini going to Minnesota, it's a wasteland behind Yainer Diaz. So while DH opportunities may be harder to come by, I don't think he's going to lose playing time from last season because they would play Caratini and Yainer Diaz a lot together last year when Francisco Alvarez was out. I think Yainer Diaz is just going to catch 140 games unless he gets hurt.
Yeah. Let's talk about Adley Rutschman. And oh my gosh, we do not have a lot of time left, but we probably need all the time in the world to talk about this guy. He is a mystery. Here are the facts that we have. In 161 games since suffering that hand injury in June of 2024, Adley Rutschman is batting .207 with 13 homers and a 623 OPS. Well, we also know he dealt with a bunch of injuries. He had the hand injury in the second half of 24. Last year, he went on the IL twice with an injury to each of his obliques, which kind of made it a lost season. We had Jake Rill on our Orioles team preview. He covers the team for MLB.com. He said that he thinks Adley having a new coaching staff, new voices around will help him. And he also thinks that Adley's not going to have to catch as much too. So less of a burden, less of a physical burden on Adley Rutschman this upcoming season. He can get some at-bats at DH. Scott, tough player to figure out. I get wanting to buy the dip on Adley Rutschman, but when you pair the fact that he probably won't be a playing time standout like he was in the past with
why won't he?
I just think with Basayo there's a floor for him that wasn't there before. Because there are other names on this team now. Like there's Basayo, and there are names that they can play at DH if they wanted to. So,
but if Adley Rutschman gets back to his 2022, 2023 self, he's gonna hit every day.
Well, that was the second part of it. Is like coupled with the struggles. It's like personally, I'm not so motivated to do it.
Well, it's hard to get motivated if there's a catcher you have any concerns about because there are so many great alternatives. You don't have to see the glass half full with Rutschman, but the risk is reflected in the cost. This was like the most perfect catcher prospect ever, former number 1 overall pick, and lived up to it right away.
Yep.
And so he was a fixture at the top of not maybe at the very top because William Contreras was right there, but Rutschman was 1 or 2 or 3 at worst, and just you could take it to the bank. taking him there. And then he had the hand injury in 2024. And okay, we were able to explain his struggles away because of that. Last year's a little harder. There were other injuries, as you said.
But he was bad before he got hurt.
Right. We saw with Ozzie Albies, sometimes these hand injuries can linger into the next season. And, that's not the only example of that. What I think the most telling thing for me, the reason why I remain optimistic, is you look at the underlying data for Rutschman. If anything, it's gotten better. His plate discipline is still terrific. He still hits the ball. He hit the ball harder than ever last year, frankly. I don't. If you didn't show me the top line numbers, you just showed me the data that should explain the caliber of player he is, I would say, okay, nothing's changed here. He's continued to be the same player all 4 of his years in the majors. And so I think there's stuff there health-wise that maybe is not being accounted for in the data, and that obviously he can recover from. And given the sparkling pedigree, the fact that he was such a perfect prospect and did live up to it right away, I trust him to come out of it. Now, if he has a 3rd straight bad year, okay. I mean, at some point you got to give up on that dream. But I think given the injuries he's had the last 2 years, and he still deserves the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Not at the same price, but it's not close to the same price.
No, it's not. The ADP for Adley Rutschman is 155. Chris, do you do it on Adley?
I thought I would be more in on Adley. And then once I actually put my rankings together, like I have him ranked, I think it's catcher 13. So it's not like I'm totally out on him, but there are other guys I would rather have. I would rather have Gabriel Moreno. I'd rather have Francisco Alvarez, despite both of them being cheaper than him in price. So It just comes down to, I think it's fine to bet on the bounce back. I wish I had a better sense of why things have gone wrong.
Yeah.
Because, the quality of contact looks very similar. A lot of the batted ball stuff doesn't look that much worse.
It was a little out of whack last year. His line drive rate came down quite a bit. His ground ball rate went up. So
that's stuff that you would often attribute to injury.
Yeah. But the expected WOBA has dropped from 374 in 2023 to 320 and 325 the past 2 seasons. So
it's reflected in something.
Yeah, there's something there. And I wish I had a better explanation for why or what he needs to fix. So I don't know. I like Adley Rutschman's bounce back potential, but I'm not pounding the table for it.
So you have him 13th. I have him 10th, just for comparison's sake.
I have him 11th too, but at cost, I feel like I'm always just going to pass and wind up drafting somebody a little bit later on.
And
Adley Rutschman.
I do have him 10th in points, I should point out.
Yeah, he is better in a points league format. Ivan Herrera, we spoke about, one of Scott's breakouts here. Again, he does not have catcher eligibility to start, or hoping he gets it early on in the season. I will just remind people that he is coming back from off-season surgery. He had to remove loose bodies from his right elbow. He also went on IL twice last year. He missed a month with left knee inflammation and missed nearly another month with a left hamstring strain. So one thing I will caution with Ivan Herrera, I like him a lot. He has dealt with some injuries here. So let's pay attention to him in spring training, see how he's throwing and things like that coming off the elbow surgery. So that's the one other downside, I guess, I would put on Ivan Herrera. Moving a little bit further down ADP, we have Alejandro Kirk at 193. We spoke about him as a potential bust candidate. Anything else to add there? Scott, I know you spoke a lot about him. Chris, all good there?
Just don't think there's very much upside there. Not a player I'm targeting.
Drop down another 30 picks. We get 2 young upside picks in Samuel Basallo, ADP of 222. Kyle Teel, ADP of 223. We have not talked about him yet. Basallo, we talked a lot about. We do like the upside, but there is some downside there with the playing time for Basallo. Kyle Teel, another top prospect who got called up last season and actually performed very well. Hit 273, 8 homers, 3 steals, 786 OPS. Did all of that in 78 games. It's a good eye at the plate, 375 on base percentage. The StatCast data wasn't great, but he does hit a lot of line drives. He pulls the ball in the air a decent amount. And good news is that he played 14 games at DH last season. So, Scott, I just think the White Sox, the way that they're set up right now, they have some upside within their lineup, but I think they're going to give a lot of opportunities to both Kyle Teel and Edgar Caro at catcher and DH respectively, and they could just mix and match.
Yeah, and I like Kyle Teel. I think in a typical season with a typical talent distribution at catcher, Kyle Teel is somebody we're getting really excited about. But to me, he's really solid compared to so many of these other young catchers being potentially spectacular. And so in that context, Kyle Teel gets short shrift. I think he could have a JT Realmuto type future offensively. And JT Realmuto for a long time was the consensus #1 catcher. So I don't want to sell Kyle Teel short. It's just the context that he finds himself in. I'd be thrilled to take him as my #2 catcher, though.
Yeah, he did steal 10 bases between AAA and the majors last season in 128 games. So that adds
to the Realmuto comparison.
I think part of the problem and why he's kind of being forgotten a little bit this offseason is just there's no standout skill here. The walks, I guess, but for fantasy, we don't care that much about that. But it's like
jack of all trades.
Some leagues.
It's kind, in OBP leagues, points leagues, but he strikes out a decent amount and probably always will. But he's kind of like on the 2080 scouting grade. He's like 50 or 55 in everything, and then a good defender, and that's a really valuable player. At least it should be. But it's a little harder to get excited about him for fantasy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a world where this season he hits 250 to 260 and 15 to 18 homers and 10 steals, and that would be a fine season. I mean, that probably
I score a bunch of runs.
Maybe a low end catcher one. I think
I'm open to him being better than that even, but
yeah,
but it's just
there's just so many other guys to get excited about.
Right, exactly.
But I would not mind him as my catcher too in a 2-catcher league. Going just after Kyle Teel, we have 3 more names: JT Realmuto at 229 ADP, then Alvarez at 231, Moreno at 236. We spoke about those latter two right there. Realmuto, he re-signed with the Phillies this offseason. He's turning 35 in March. Looks like the age might be starting to catch up. He was still solid, 12 homers, 8 steals last season, but he needed 134 games to get there. Would not bank on him playing that many games again this upcoming season. The power is starting to go as well. Chris, I think it's entirely possible that Realmuto delivers a serviceable season as a second catcher. It's just a 35-year-old coming off a 700 OPS with all this young talent around. It's hard to get excited about.
Yeah, we gave him the benefit of the doubt last year because I think in 2024 he played through and then had knee surgery, if I'm remembering correctly. He had a meniscus tear. And so I think we gave him the benefit of the doubt. But the thing that really stands out to me is JT Realmuto's defensive value cratered in 2024. And it was like, okay, well, he was hurt. It wasn't any better in 2025. And so that to me suggests, yeah, we're clearly in the decline phase. He's still a good athlete. There's still some stolen base upside, but I think stolen bases might be like the only place that he's a true plus, even among catchers. Mm-hmm. And even that, it was 8 last year, so it might just be a handful.
I think he's ranked appropriately. It's understandable why he's the forgotten man here. I think he is on the decline overall, clearly. He's my 17th catcher. I'd be happy to take him there. I think his production fell off a little too much last year, just looking at the batted ball data. I think it's more likely Realmuto improves from 2025 than continues to get worse. And so after all those upsidey guys are gone, if he's still there, I think that's a really good #2 catcher.
Mm-hmm. After Moreno, we dropped down about 10 picks. You get Carter Jensen with an ADP of 245, followed by Austin Wells at 250 and Logan O'Hoppe at 262. So we spoke about Carter Jensen, excited about him. Austin Wells and Logan O'Hoppe. Scott, kind of similar skill sets here. You're going to get some power, lower batting average for both of these guys. Austin Wells, I mean, to his credit, he did chip in 71 RBI, 5 steals last year. So he does a little bit more. Honestly, I thought he would hit better for a better batting average in the majors. I think he's selling out a little bit too much for power in Yankee Stadium. Again, I think these guys are what they are. It's power, low batting average. If that's what you want for your second catcher later on, I think they're totally fine for that.
Yeah, I mean, they're clearly just second catchers, and you're specializing with them. But, somebody in a 2-catcher league, a couple of people in a 2-catcher league are going to have to do that, and it may be me. Logan O'Hoppe. Logan O'Hoppe's been a big disappointment to me, I have to say. The shape of his production is so different in the majors than it was in the minors in the worst possible way. And I thought he was going to be a bigger deal than it turns out he is, but he could pop some homers.
It is
Angels.
It is crazy to me. Exactly what you just said. His plate discipline is so bad in the majors. Career 6% walk rate, 29% K rate, 286 on base percentage. It was the complete opposite in the minors. It's so crazy how far the other way things have gone here for Logan O'Hoppe. And last year was a tale of 2 seasons for him. His first 2 months, 264 batting average, 14 homers, 816 OPS. Final 4 months, 177, 5 homers, 498 OPS for a 4-month span. I did just want to point out that on May 27th, he left the game after getting hit in the head by a backswing. And, he was kind of fell backwards a little bit. And I think maybe he kind of sat out a game or 2 after that. I just wonder if maybe he was playing through some kind of concussion type thing, because his numbers just cratered after that. So there's nothing to back that up. I just feel like maybe it's a possibility. Also, I don't have anything statistical to support him, but I do wonder if getting Kurt Suzuki as his manager is something that could help. Just former catcher, maybe they could relate. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here for Logan O'Hoppe. After him, we have 3 names between 275 and 300. Ryan Jeffers at 280, Dylan Dingler at 280 as well, and Tyler Stevenson at 294. Chris, any of those 3 stand out to you as a low-end catcher 2 type?
Yeah, that's what they are. They're low-end catcher 2 types. None of them stand out. I guess Tyler Stevenson, we have seen stretches of him being a really productive hitter. There have been times when he's even played a lot of DH for the Reds. I don't think that's likely to happen at all in 2026, and there just isn't a ton of upside here. I could see a 17 homer, 70 RBI season with a useful batting average from Tyler Stevenson, but it's not in this landscape. It just doesn't seem to make sense to pay up for that. He's your very last pick. Okay, you take him as your number 2 catcher because you didn't get anybody better.
Yeah,
I've seen some people express enthusiasm for Dylan Dingler, and look, he hit 278. His XBA was 290, which is 97th percentile. And so, I mean, that's reason for enthusiasm given the price. He's shown some batting average potential at a position and a point in the draft where that's hard to find. I just don't know that I actually buy it. The line drive rate was really good, and maybe it'll stay that way, but that's not the stickiest stat from year to year. I mean, it's just there just hasn't been enough repeated instances of this. And he's such a bad plate discipline guy, Dylan Dingler. I think it's Yainer Diaz where, okay, in theory he could hit for a high average, but there's going to be a wide range of outcomes here, and he doesn't have the ability to put the ball over the fence. I don't think. I mean, the X slug was pretty high, but
his pulled air rate is pretty good too.
Yeah, I just
it's a tough home park too. I think that's the biggest reason that I just can't get excited. I think he's okay.
I think he has the potential to be okay like he was last year. I don't see him improving much. I think it's much more likely he takes a step back. And if that's the case, then he's, even in a 2-catcher league, pretty fringe.
Yeah, I do agree with your take, Chris, on Tyler Stevenson. It's not someone I'm overly excited about. Last year, just season completely wrecked by injuries, but he was much better 2 years ago. We're only 1 year removed from that. And he finished strong in September. He's entering a contract year. Great ballpark. I think the lineup for the Reds should be pretty good there after signing Eugenio Suarez. So you know what? I could talk myself into Tyler Stevenson if I miss out on everybody else. You move outside the top 300, and there are a bunch of names here. I'll just read them all off. You guys tell me if you could see yourself drafting any of them in a deeper two-catcher league. Carson Kelly, Carlos Narvaez, Edgar Caro, Sean Murphy, Bo Naylor, Keibert Ruiz, Freddie Fermin, Harry Ford, Caratini, Miguel Amaya, Danny Jansen, Joey Bart. Lots of names there. Any stand out to you guys? Very deep two-catcher league stuff?
I mean, Carson Kelly clearly overperformed, especially in the first half of last year. But in the price range we're talking about, I think he's fine. He's going to be in a good lineup. He has good plate discipline at the very least. Miguel Amaya is going to challenge him for playing time, and maybe also Moises Ballesteros. Honestly, I like Moises Ballesteros more than all these guys. We haven't mentioned him, sort of like Ivan Herrera, DH only to start out. But I think he could sneak in enough starts to regain eligibility there. Good contact skills, high prospect. But yeah, back to Carson Kelly. I think he's fine in as like a second catcher in a 15-teamer. Harry Ford, I like the upside. Yep. Good on base skills, could potentially give you some speed. I think he's going to overtake Keibert Ruiz in short order in Washington. And even Victor Caratini. The hitting profile doesn't look that impressive, but if you just prorate his stats as mostly a backup, they're not bad, and Minnesota's talking about making him their primary DH, I presume in addition to being a backup catcher to Ryan Jeffers. So, deep enough league, I think Victor Caratini is worth remembering.
Yeah. I would say Harry Ford's the most interesting of this crew by far. If you happen to play in a league where Ballesteros has catcher eligibility, or he gains it fairly quickly, I think he could very much matter. But I think, unlike Ivan Herrera, we don't expect Moises Ballesteros to be a big part of I think if everything goes according to plan for the Cubs, he might not catch a game next year. And so that's what makes it harder to get excited about him. But as a player, if he was catcher eligible, I think he'd absolutely at least be in the top 20, Moises Ballesteros. So, there's certainly a path to fantasy relevance there, but I think Harry Ford is the most interesting here. We talked about the Agustin Ramirez and the out-of-position steals that you can get from him. Well, I think Harry Ford has multiple 20 steal seasons in the minors.
Yeah,
so that could
did
really...
it last year. They fell off for some reason. I haven't seen it, but he had like a 35 steal season in the minors, and is just known as being really athletic for a catcher. Great plate discipline.
And they toyed with him playing second base and the outfield, I think, at various points when he was still in the Mariners system.
Not as much as was discussed. I think he got a little bit of time in left field, but very little. But yeah, that shows the athleticism. Not a lot of raw power. What he gets comes about by pulling it in the air, if he does do that enough. Yeah. So it's opposite end of the spectrum from Agustin Ramirez as far as contact quality goes, but otherwise I think the profile is very similar for Ramirez and Ford.
I'll just quickly mention with Carlos Narvaez hit 15 home runs last season, and over the last 3 months he struggled quite a bit, but it turns out he was playing through knee pain and he needed a cleanup procedure after the season. Expected to be ready to go for spring training, and he's just a starting catcher for the Red Sox. So just a name to remember there. Edgar Caro, too. He was a top prospect entering last season, but hit for barely any power. Visited Driveline this offseason to increase his bat speed and launch angle. So just a very deep league name there to watch is Edgar Caro. And I will mention one prospect to know, Joe Mack of the Marlins. He's 23 years old. Last season in the minors, hit 21 homers with 9 steals and 813 OPS. He got 99 games in a AAA, and I think there's a pretty good chance that we see him early on in the season with the Marlins this year, and then probably just play Agustin Ramirez at DH or first base. So
they might break camp with 3 catchers on the roster.
Yeah,
I think there's a decent chance, and Joe Mack has some do not take this as a criticism or an insult. He's got some Mike Zunino. There's plus profile, but batting average is going to be a real problem for him, I think.
Yeah. All right, that is our first position preview. We went very long. There are a lot of catchers to talk about, so hopefully our other ones are not this long. But obviously, again, lots to get to.
I think there's more to talk about at catcher than most other positions right now. It's weird.
There is a lot. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning into Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.